He said there's only, he has a pair, his wife has a pair, Prabhupada had a pair.
Yeah. No, they don't. The world is like that. Everything is always changing. So these, I mean, you can get wampers, but they don't sound like this. They added some other kind of metals that are just dead. It doesn't ring. These ring. This is bell metal. And kartals also, they used to make them in the 70s. Kartals used to be bell metal. Now you can't find it. It's in there. And it's everywhere. They don't make the same thing, they change it. So, I think we have enough people to start. Yeah.
You have more sheets?
No, that's all I have in this song.
Mais tu l'avais pas. Il est pas là.
Ok, tu veux qu'il le lire avec moi?
Ah oui. Moi je l'ai trouvé moi sur quelques songs.
Ah oui, Mathieu.
Merci.
Merci. Merci. Merci.
So this song was written by Srila Maharaj, Sri Satyanandan Bangan, and when I first heard it, I liked it immediately because this was a beautiful song about Lord Chaitanya and some of his associates. So, let's chat. Jai Sachinandana Suramuni Bandana Bhavavaya Khandana Jaya He Jaya Sachinandana Suramuni Bandana Bhavavaya Khandana Jaya Sachinandana Suramuni Bandana Bhavavaya Khandana Jaya He
Jaya Lakshmi Vishnu Priya
Lakshmi Vishnu Priya, Nirvana Priya, Jaya Priya Hara Krishna. Jaya Lakshmi Vishnu Priya, Nirvana Priya, Jaya Priya Hara Krishna. Sita Devarai, Mahini Privasa Jai. Sita Devarai, Mahini Privasa Jai. Jaya Chandra Jaya Vikanandarai, Radha Jaya So as I said, this song is made up of different names of the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sometimes, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written songs with this. He has written songs with just the names of Krishna. Like Yashomati Nandana. Yashomati Nandana is only different names of Krishna. He's put them together in such a nice arrangement, and we can sing them, and each name reminds us of a pastime of Krishna. So in the same way, Srila Maharaj has written this song, and all the different names can remind you of the pastime of Lord Chaitanya. So, he says, Jai Sachinandana, Suramuni Bandana, Bhavavaya Kondana, Jaya He. All glories to Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the son of Sachidevi. Great sages, Suramuni, great sages and demigods always sing his praise. For by doing so, the fear of repeated birth and death is cut to pieces. Just by singing the praise of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then he says, Jai Hari Kirtana, Nartana Bhartana, Kalimala Kartana Jayohi. All glories to the Kirtan of the holy name of Krishna. For when one chants the holy name of Krishna and dances in ecstasy, the filth of this iron age of Kali disappears. These are nice things to remember when we're chanting, what we're doing. Just by engaging in the kirtan of Hari, we become immune to the effects of Kali Yuga, which are many, and it seems at times insurmountable. But we are being reassured here that by taking shelter of chanting the holy name of Lord Chaitanya, we can become the filth of the iron age of Kali will disappear. Then he says, Nayana Purandara Vishwarupa Snehadhara Vishwambara Vishwara Kalyana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delights all eyes with his charming beauty. He is the most dearly beloved of all, beloved Lord of all, and he is the intimate brother of Vishwarupa. Vishwarupa was Mahaprabhu's older brother. He appeared before Mahaprabhu, and just as they were, as Nimai, Mahaprabhu was growing up, Vishwarupa left home and went and took sannyas, very much to the displeasure of his parents, Sachimata and Jagannath Mishra. And also Nimai was missing him. But Vrindavan Das Thakur, in his Chaitanya Bhagavat, informed us that Vishwarupa merged merged into the body of Nityananda Prabhu. Therefore, when Nityananda Prabhu came to Mahaprabhu, he addressed him as my brother. And Mahaprabhu also accepted Nityananda Prabhu as his elder brother. So, he, meaning Lord Chaitanya, he brings the highest auspiciousness to everyone, for he floods the entire universe with the nectar of love of Godhead. And thus he saves all living beings. Then he glorifies the wives of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jaya Lakshmi Vishnu Priya, Vishwambar Priya, Jaya Priya Kinkara Ishan. He says, all glories to Lakshmi Priya and Vishnu Priya Devi, who are very dear to Srinimai Pandit. So, again, just reading this and hearing the names, my mind goes to pastimes of Chaitanya Bhagavata or Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Chaitanya Bhagavata, Vrindavan Das Thakur gives a bigger description of the marriage between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lakshmi Priya, and also after when Lakshmi Priya left, they say she was bitten by a snake, but there are different opinions. They say this, said she was bitten by the snake of separation from her Lord. Mahaprabhu had gone to Gaya to do the Shraddha ceremony for his father. And while there, he made many students, and he stayed longer than he maybe intended to. And when he came back here, his mother, such a mother, told him, your wife has died, Lakshmi Priya is gone. And Mahaprabhu was sad. But shortly after, Sachimata told him, you should get married again. So she was the one who set out trying to find Nimai a suitable wife. And there was a fellow in the neighborhood who was known for matchmaking. I can't remember his name. So she enlisted him to look for a suitable wife for her son. And he found Vishnu Priya. And when they met, Mahaprabhu immediately liked her. But Vrindavan Das Thakur informs us, because she is one of his eternal associates. That it wasn't an ordinary marriage, so to speak. She was a Shakti of Mahaprabhu. So, and then he glorified the family servant. He was there even when Mahaprabhu was at home. Isha, he was just a servant that would do anything they needed. Anytime they needed something, Sachimata or Mahaprabhu would tell Isha and he would go and get it. So he was very dear to them. Then he says, all glories to Sita Thakurani. Sita Thakurani is the wife of Lord of Sri Advaita. Sri Sita Advaita Roy. She was wife of Advaita Acharya, and sometimes Advaita Acharya would be referred to as the husband of Sita. He was a great devotee. All these people, all these names, they were great devotees that came to participate in the Lord's pastimes. Advaita Acharya, of course, was Mahavishnu. And so, she was not ordinary person. Then he says, all glories to Malini Devi and Srivas Pandit. Malini was the wife of Srivas Thakur. And Mahaprabhu began his congregational chanting in the house of Srivas Thakur. Srivas Thakur, Srivas Pandit. He was also a very learned person, not an ordinary. But that's where the Sankirtan movement began, in his house. And for some time, Mahaprabhu would have kirtan there every night, throughout the night. But he was just gathering up his troop, you could say. These were all Nitya Siddhas. Narottam Das Thakur tells us we should understand all of these associates of Mahaprabhu are Nitya Siddhas. They're not ordinary people. But they came to assist the Lord in his pastimes, his lila. So, Srivas Thakur was certainly, he was also one of the members of the Pancha Tattva. But the kirtans began in his house, and for some time, it was by invitation only. Not everybody could enter into that kirtan at night. Mahaprabhu had instructed Srivas, don't just let any and everybody come. I only want serious devotees to come and chant with me. And he followed that rule, and one time a Brahmin came, and the Brahmin knocked on the door and he demanded that he be allowed to enter the kirtan. And Srivas said, I'm sorry, but Mahaprabhu was in instructions. And he said, you must let me in because I live only by drinking milk. I don't eat any other food. I live only on milk. So I think I deserve to be allowed into this kirtan. So Mahaprabhu told him, not Mahaprabhu, Srivas Thakur told him, just hold on a minute, I will go and ask Mahaprabhu. So he closed the door and left him out standing outside. And he went and he told Mahaprabhu, there's a gentleman out there, a Brahmin, and he says that he thinks he should be allowed to come in with your kirtan because he lives only by drinking milk. And Mahaprabhu smiled and he says, tell him that you cannot get praying by drinking milk. So he was very upset, that Brahmin, and he cursed Mahaprabhu. That he will not have he said, your household life will be ruined. You will not have a happy household life. So that's why sometimes Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in one song I sang last night, he said, Mahaprabhu accepted the curse of that Brahmin, and therefore he took sannyas. So his household life didn't last very long. With Vishnu, Lakshmi Priya, it wasn't long at all, maybe a couple of years. And then Vishnu Priya, that wasn't much longer. Then he took sannyas and left and went to Jagannath Puri. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, he fulfilled the curse of the Brahmana by leaving his home. So then he says, all glories to Chandrasekhar Acharya. He was another intimate associate of Mahaprabhu. His name comes up when Mahaprabhu went to Benares. He went to Benares, and but before going there, he sent Chandrasekhar and Tapan Mishra, two devotees. He sent them to go ahead to sort of pave the way for him when he comes. So they went and they lived there. But at that time, Benares was a stronghold for the Mayavadis. They were in control of the city. In fact, there was, what is his name? Prakashananda Saraswati. He was a big Mayavad sannyasi. It is said he had 10,000 sannyasi disciples, all Mayavadis. So they were like ruling the town of Benares. So when Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar Acharya went there, they couldn't understand, why did Mahaprabhu send us to this place? There's only Mayavadis here. You never heard anyone chanting the names of Krishna or anything. It's all Brahman, Brahman, Brahman. But Mahaprabhu had a plan. And his plan was when he came, he got to meet with Prakashananda Saraswati, and he converted him and all his 10,000 followers, had them all chanting and dancing. Like I said, they were Mayavadis. But Mahaprabhu, just by his beauty, Prakashananda Saraswati was attracted. He was attracted by his beauty and he wanted to meet him. And he met with Mahaprabhu and he told Mahaprabhu, I have a question for you. Why you don't come and associate with us sannyasis? You are sannyasi and we are sannyasis. But Mahaprabhu had taken sannyas from, what's his name? Keshava Bharati. He was also a Mayavad school, but Mahaprabhu had converted him. So Mahaprabhu, while as a sannyasi, he looked like a Mayavad because he had no sikha. Mahaprabhu, I remember a little past time when Prabhupada was, this is before the Chaitanya Charitamrita came out. Prabhupada was walking on a morning walk, and he was asked by Chidananda Swami. He said, I have heard that Mahaprabhu didn't have a sikha, why is that? And Prabhupada just laughed and said, oh, he was Mayavadi. But actually he was not Mayavadi. But when he took sannyas from Keshava Bharati, he whispered the Vaishnava mantra into his ear. And he asked him, is this the mantra you're going to give me? Because, of course, Mahaprabhu didn't want the Mayavadi sannyas mantra. So he gave him the Vaishnava mantra. And when Keshava Bharati heard it, he thought, oh, yes, this is the mantra I want to give you. And he chanted it back, gave it back to Mahaprabhu and sannyas. So, but he kept going without sikha. So when he arrived in Benares with all the 10,000 Mayavad sannyasis, They had no seeker, the Mayavadis, but Mahaprabhu would go out with Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekharacharya, and one or two other people, and they would do Harinam, a small group through the city. And the Mayavad sannyasis, they saw this, so they began to criticize Mahaprabhu. What is he doing? Singing and dancing with these sentimental people. He's a sannyasi, his business should be to study Vedanta. They were proud of their knowledge of Vedanta. So he said, why are you doing this? Is the same question that Prakashananda asked Mahaprabhu. Why are you choose to, you don't associate with us sannyasis, but you're hanging out with these sentimental people chanting and dancing in the streets, when you should be studying Vedanta. In fact, he called Mahaprabhu a bahuka, like a sentimentalist. So Mahaprabhu said, well, if you permit me, I'll tell you why. And then Mahaprabhu told him, when I met my Guru Maharaj, he called me a fool and he told me, you are not fit to study Vedanta. He said, you should just chant Hare Krishna. So he said, so I began doing that. He said, my Guru Maharaj, he told me two beautiful verses. I can remember the verse. That was the thing, but he had another verse he said there. Krishna Kirtan Samsara Mucha. Krishna Nama. My brain is not working. But in essence, he told him, by chanting this mantra, you'll be able to conquer over samsara, moksha, the cycle of birth and death. Repeated birth and death. This will happen by chanting this mantra, Hare Krishna mantra. And then he said, and by chanting these names of Krishna, you will surely be able to see the lotus feet of Krishna. And Prabhupada commented and made a short comment on these two verses. In the early days, he was lecturing on Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he said, by telling Mahaprabhu that you will soon be able to see the lotus feet of Krishna, he said that means you will go back to home, back to Godhead, by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. So Prabhupada said, here's the evidence. From Ishwara Puri. He gave this, so Mahaprabhu told this to Prakashananda Saraswati, and he was charmed, and he accepted it. And anyway, Mahaprabhu got the whole pack of Mayavadis to chant and dance. It was a miraculous event. No one expected that, especially even Mahaprabhu's two associates, Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar. They couldn't imagine this would happen, that he could get all these Mayavadis to chant Hare Krishna and dance in Kirtan. So they became converted. So you can see these names, these associates of Mahaprabhu were very special. Then he says, Jaya Nityananda Roy, Gadadhara Jaya Jaya, Jaya Haridas Namacharya. He says, all glories to Sri Nityananda Prabhu, Gadadhar Pandit, and the Namacharya Haridas Thakur. How nicely Maharaj has arranged these names that you can just needed to remember some of the pastimes of Mahaprabhu. Then on the last verse it says, Murari Mukunda Jai, Premanidhi Mahashaya. He says, all glories to Murari Gupta. Who is Murari Gupta? Hanuman. Someone tell me.
Hanuman.
Yes.
He was a doctor
He's a doctor,
in Srikhanda.
and yes, he was also a classmate of Mahaprabhu. And he was also a scholar. But he was afraid to, Mahaprabhu would, as Nimai Pandit, would challenge him to debate. And he knew there's no way I could win a debate with him. Because Nimai was debating everybody in town and defeating all of them. So when he saw Mahaprabhu coming, he would cross the street and go on the other side. Until eventually Mahaprabhu ran across the street and grabbed him and said, why are you avoiding me, Murari? Is it because I'm not a Vaishnava like you? And Murari said, yes. And Mahaprabhu said, wait and you will see, one day I'll become a Vaishnava. And I'll be the best Vaishnava you've ever seen. So he was, they taught, all the Vaishnavas taught, this is the time when Mahaprabhu was not showing any, not exhibiting any signs that he was a Vaishnava. He was a scholar, and they thought he's just an arrogant scholar, and if only he was a Vaishnava, because they were all attracted to him. His beauty was such. No one could escape his beauty. He was so beautiful. But eventually, one by one, they all came and joined his party. So Murari Gupta says, and all glories to Mukunda Datta. Mukunda Datta. What do we know about Mukunda Datta?
The father of, is he the father of Raghunandan Thakur?
Not this one.
No, this is Datta, not Bhatta.
He went to listen to the Mayavadis.
Oh.
Yes.
He was a singer also.
He was a
great
kirtan singer. Mahaprabhu loved to hear his kirtan, loved to hear him sing and chant. But then when Mahaprabhu heard that he's going to mix in with listening to the Mayavadis, he banned him. He said, tell Mukunda, he cannot come into my association. I don't want to see his face. Mahaprabhu was like strict like that. And Mukunda asked some of the devotees, can you ask Mahaprabhu when will I get the opportunity to see him again? Because it was difficult for him to live without seeing Mahaprabhu. After having his association, seeing him daily, chanting with him, dancing with him, and then suddenly you're banished, ostracized. So he asked Mahaprabhu when I will get the opportunity to come back in his company. And when they told Mahaprabhu asked him, have you seen Mukunda? They said, yeah, he's lamenting not being able to come and see you. Mahaprabhu said, what else does he say? He said, well, he wanted to know when will he be allowed back and when he get the chance to see you again. And Mahaprabhu was like very heavy and stern. He said, not for 1,000,000 lifetimes. And the devotees were shocked that Mahaprabhu could be so heavy. And they had to go and tell Mukunda this. So they met Mukunda and they said, did you see Mahaprabhu? Yes. Did you ask him when I'll get to his company again? They said, yes, but I said, what?
Not good
He
news.
said, not good news. He said, not for 1,000,000 lifetimes. When Mukunda heard this, he began to dance in ecstasy. Haribo, Haribo. And they said, did you hear what I said? He told you, he said, not for a million years. He said, yes, but now I know I will get his company. That's all I care about. That I'll get it. I will get it. I'll get to see him again. Even if it's a million words, that is nothing. So he was another eternal associate of Mahaprabhu. And then he says, Murari Mukunda Joy, Premanidhi Mahashaya. Premanidhi, Mahaprabhu used to call, what's his name? Pundarik Vidyanidhi. He used to call him Premanidhi because he was like a walking, a person, a walking body of praying, ecstasy. He was special. And he was, there's a nice pastime about him. It's told in both Chaitanya Charitamrita and Chaitanya Bhagavata that I believe it was Mukunda had brought, you know that Gadadhar always was happy to meet new Vaishnavas. If you heard there's a new Vaishnava in town, he wants to meet him. He was eager, happy. So, Pundarik Vidyanidhi had just come to town. He was living outside, but he had just come to town. So, Mukunda told Gadadhar, I want to take you to meet this nice Vaishnava. So he took him there, and when he got to the place, he was like shocked because Pundarik was sitting on a big platform with nice big bolsters, and he was dressed in silks. His hair, he had long hair, it was slick, oiled. He was wearing jewelry in his ears and on his hands, and smoking a hookah. Yeah, he was sitting there smoking a hookah, and Gadadhar, he didn't say anything, but he looked and he thought, this is the Vaishnava that Mukunda wants me to see. This guy looks like he's just a sense enjoyer. Look at him, he's smoking a hookah, his hair is nice and oiled and dressed in fancy robes. So Mukunda could understand what Gadadhar was thinking by the expression on his face. You know, Prabhupada told us the face is the index to the mind. So he looked at Mukunda's face and he could see he's thinking unfavorable about meeting Pundarik. So what did he do? He chanted a verse from Bhagavatam, from the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. All I can remember is the first line. Aho Vakiyam Stanakala Putam. Means, who else shall I worship other than Krishna? He is so merciful that when this Putana, who was the sister of Bakasura, when she came with poison to kill him, that was her intention. She came with bad intention. She changed her body from a Rakshasi, so she was looking like a gopi, and she went to the house of Nanda Maharaj. And she inquired and they told her, you know, where will I find? I heard there's this beautiful baby. They directed her to the house of Nanda Maharaj. And she goes there, and nobody knows her, they've never seen her before. But they welcomed her, just because she was dressed like a devotee. She was a Rakshasi. And they even offered her if she wants to feed the child. So apparently even the other ladies in the Braj would get the opportunity, mothers, to feed Krishna. This was their Vatsalya Rasa. So they offered her, the Putana, who was in disguise, if you want to feed the child. And she said, sure. And they gave the child, baby Krishna, to her, and she put some poison on the nipple. And she's thinking, as soon as he sucked this, he will die. So this was pretty diabolical. If somebody do something like that today, it would be on the news. You know, this nurse kills baby by poisoning, you know. So she offered Krishna her breath. And Krishna, because he is Achyuta, his position, he never falls down from his position. Even as a baby, he's still Bhagwan. So he began to suck her nipple. And he sucked so hard, he sucked out her life. He killed her. But she was awarded Vatsalya Bhakti. She got a place in Goloka as a nurse to Krishna. So Uddhava, who said this verse, said, who else shall I worship but Krishna? Like he takes the bright side of everything. Even this person came with bad intentions to kill him, he gives a position, you know, like Mother Yashoda in the house and the verse. So that's when Mukunda chanted this verse by Uddhava, and Pundarik, when he heard the verse, he just lost it. He just started shaking and went into a trance, fell off of the seat where he was sitting. He began ripping off his clothes, and pulling on his hair, and rolling on the ground. And Gadadhar could understand. He's not ordinary. These are symptoms of ecstatic ecstasy. So he told Govinda, I've made a big mistake. You can't judge a book by the cover. He said, I doubted, I wondered why you brought me to see this fellow. But now I could see, upon hearing one verse, he's gone into trance. What shall I do? And he went to Mahaprabhu and told him, and Mahaprabhu told him, then you should take initiation from Pundarik. But Mahaprabhu used to call Pundarik by this name, Premanidhi, because he was full of prema, and it was always overflowing, coming out of him. Such a personality he was. So, he says, all glories to the other eternal associates of Chaitanya Prabhu. And then he says, by singing the glories of Srila Prabhupada, he's speaking of course of Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He said, by singing the glories of Srila Prabhupada, and all those great souls who are eternal associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even the lowest of men can attain the highest treasure of love. So, that's the soul of Bhakti Rakha Srila Maharaj.
Prabhuji, it was advertised from the conversation yesterday that today we would be reading or singing this Shri
Premadhananda Deva Stotra.
Yes, it was advertised.
Okay.
So I'm wondering maybe some people came for that. I don't know.
Well, we can do that. A few verses. It's a long poem. It's 72 verses.
Maybe a few?
Yeah, this morning we did a few. We did a few.
Five verses this morning.
So we can do another 5.
Yes. Then you have to stay 1 week.
Huh?
Then you have to stay 1 more week.
Right.
Cannot leave before the end.
Yeah.
That's the track here.
I need help finding
It's
the song.
it's on Goranga, and it's the last song.
Agora.
It's a 97, no, really?
Il y a plusieurs versions, ça dépend quelle version il y a.
Like 98, 97,
La version du même livre.
Oh yes. Found it.
Le WhatsApp
Thank you.
Arindalo,
Hmm?
c'est en français
So 3
et en anglais aussi.
Premadana Deva Stotra. This is a poem composed by Srila Maharaj
C'est quoi que tu demandes?
long ago. And what he did was he condensed the Chaitanya Charitamrita into 72 verses, Sanskrit verses. And this poem is relished by for years. Anyway, we did 5. So we continue.
Can we sing one?
Hmm?
Can we sing one, just for the melody?
Yeah, I'm going to sing it. Sri Sachidu Lala Balya Bala Sangha Chanchalam Akumara Sarva Shastra Dakshatarka Mangalam Chatra Sangha Ranga Digji Ishudarka Samharam Premadama Devameva Gaura Sundaram. Smell it. As the son of Sachidevi, he enjoyed mischievous childhood pastimes with other boys. As a mere youth, he acquired mastery over all the scriptures, and by his expertise in the current method of logic, he established the auspicious path of devotion for the welfare of all. On the banks of the Ganges, in the company of his students, he vanquished the pride of the famous Digvijay Pandit. I sing with joy the unending glories of my golden Gaura Sundara, the Lord of beauty, the one and only abode of divine love. So that was what? 6? Yes, so now we chant the number 7. Varja Patra Sharameya Sarpasanga Kenanam Skandavahi Goratirtha Viprachitra Niranam Krishna Rama Matrabalya Upashanti Shokaram Primadama Devaniva Nigora Sundaram. His childhood pastimes were most wonderful. He used to play merrily with rejected utensils and inauspicious animals like pups and poisonous snakes.
Like what?
Pups,
C'est
like
les
puppies.
Les chiots.
Puppies.
Les chiots.
Ah, tiens. Pups.
And poisonous snakes. You know.
Puppies. Pups.
Yeah, before this I only know about the snakes, but she don't know, it says he used to play with pups.
Yeah.
He was once carried away by a thief who wanted to steal his clothes and his jewelry. Yeah. He also appeared before the Tirtha Vipra, which is a Brahmin who was constantly traveling, visiting the holy places of pilgrimage. This is such a wonderful pastime. And he blessed that Brahmin with his remnants. When you see, he's just, it's condensed. He's not giving you the whole pastime, but you can remember the pastime if you read Chaitanya Charitamrita. It says, when he would cry in frustration, only the utterance of the names of Krishna would at once pacify him. I sing with joy the unending glories of my golden Gaurasundar, my sweet Lord, the one and only divine abode of pure love. Now, text number 8. Snana Ganga Varibala Sangatanga Kelam Balikari Parihasya Bhagibaya Vilanam Kutakarka Chatra Shiksha Karivada Taparam Premagamo Devaniva Namiyora Sundaram. He would play wonderfully in a variety of ways with his boyhood friends while bathing in the waters of the Ganges. Sometimes, in a jovial mood, he would speak sweetly with the young girls, as if teasing them. He would present complicated arguments and counter-arguments before his puzzled students and teachers. I sing with joy the unending glories of my golden Gaurasundar, my sweet Lord, the one and only divine abode of pure love. Text 9. Srinimai Panditeti Namadesha Banditam Navyakarta Dakshalaksha Dambidamba Kanditam Stapikarta Kanda Kanda Kandikarta Sambaram Premadamo Devaniva He was respected all over the land as the learned scholar Nimai Pandit. He would crush the ego of the proud Nyaya scholars of his time, his logicians, by his numerous, ingenious, and original arguments. And after having thus shattered their traditional theories, he would again establish them. I sing with joy the unending glories of my golden Lord Gaurasundar, the Lord of my heart, the one and only abode of divine love. And the last one for tonight. Shloka Ganga Vandanata Dijidiksu Vashitam Yatsakanka Adidosha Adhatartha Dushitam Vashvayuki Ruda Buddhi Datadiva Adana Priyana Devaniva Navigora Sundara. The Lord pointed out the defects of ornamental grammar in the verses spontaneously composed. This is the Digvijaya. And he recited, these verses were spontaneously composed and recited in praise of the goddess Ganga by the most celebrated scholar, Keshav Kashmiri. When the scholar tried to defend himself with many complicated arguments, even those arguments were defeated by the Lord. Although the Lord had humbled the Pandit by checking his hasty intellect, he nonetheless gave him all due respect and honor as a learned Sanskrit scholar. I sing with joy the unending glories of my golden Gaurasundara, my loving Lord, the one and only abode of divine love. This pastime is wonderful because it shows the Mahaprabhu being so merciful. He wanted to curb the pride of this Pandit. But he also, after doing so, when he became humble, Mahaprabhu praised him and glorified him and told him this is the only thing wrong with what he was doing was that he was too proud. But Mahaprabhu praised his learning in Sanskrit and everything, and he blessed him to go continue. And he said, don't tell anyone what happened between us. So Mahaprabhu showed that he didn't want to just destroy that fellow, but he wanted to get rid of the false pride. They say pride comes before a fall, and Mahaprabhu doesn't like his devotees to get proud, puffed up as we would say, because he will curb our pride. He did this with him and he did with someone else also. He honored their position, but he just removed the contamination of pride. And Srila Maharaj has stated it so nicely in just a few words that he conveyed the essence of the pastime. He was expert at doing that. All these verses here, when you read them, you will see how expert he was at presenting the Leelas. And these verses were composed in Sanskrit. As you know, Mahaprabhu's Leela, all the biographers of Mahaprabhu's Leela were in Bengali. And Srila Maharaj, being a scholar, he wrote these pastimes in Sanskrit with perfect meter. So it's really a nice thing to, very quickly you can read through all 72 verses and you'll have covered practically the entirety of Mahaprabhu's Leela. You couldn't do that with the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's so many volumes. Take a long time. But this, you can go through it quickly. All right?
It's the same matter of one of the Radhika Stakam. You know this? Radhika Stakam of Kaviraj Goswami, same way
meter.
of chanting. Right, to find out is
This meter in the what do you call it, introduction to the book, it was published as a booklet. It's in, Srila Maharaj says in the thing that it was done in the meter he called it dancing meter. Sulaka. Yeah. So it's very, it's wonderful. It's amazing.
C'est la fin du livre.
Huh?
Matka Kanjanabja, or maybe it's not the same. Garavadi Gaurama. No, not the same.
There are so many different meters. Same thing. Many different meters.
Is there another?
He said this one is, he called it the dancing meter. Anyway, let's do one more bhajan before.
C'est la même tune.
You want to play the harmonium again? This time I'd like to sing Gauranga Bolite Habe. And I think everybody should know that one. Three. Teen Tal. Gauranga Bolite Habe Pulaka Sharira Hari Hari Bolite Yade Babe Mira Gauranga Bolite Habe Pulaka Sharira Hari Hari Bolite Yane Babe Mira Gauranga Bolite Habe Kabe Nitai Chande Koruna Hoi De Samsara Bhatana Gaura Kabe Tuchane Shariya Kabe Sudabindona Kabe Hamo Hero Shri Vrindavan Kabe
পদে হইবে আপুতি তবে হাম বুঝা বসে যুগলাপি সদা বলিতে হবে হরি হরি বলিতে না Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur-Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur-Bhakta Vrinda Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama
Haribol. So, a few words on this song by Narottam Das Thakur. In this song, Narottam Das Thakur is hankering. He's hankering after spiritual perfection. As we should all come to. We should want to make spiritual advancement. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, there's an enthusiasm to advance, eagerness. But sometimes, many times, after one has been around for a little bit, he becomes he stops thinking about making advancement. And that is, his growth stops. So Narottam Das Thakur is advising us in this song. He's hankering in a particular way. He's saying, when will that day come to me? When will that day be mine? When as soon as I chant the name of Gauranga, there will be tears in my eyes, faltering of the voice, hair standing on end, the, what you call Asta Sattvika Bhava, 8 or 9 different symptoms of ecstasy. This comes without trying to make it happen. It's a stage. Prabhupada cautioned us. He says, this is not to be imitated. Because there is a class of devotees who, pretenders, what they are called, imitationists, or prakrita sahajiyas. And they artificially induce tears to come from their eyes and they throw themselves on the ground and cry, and uneducated people see them and will think, oh, they must be experiencing bhava. But advanced devotees like Bhaktisiddhanta, they would recognize it immediately and say, no, this is sahaja. Actually, believe it or not, when I first moved into the ashram in New York, 1972, not many Indians would come to the temple. Maybe maximum, 3 or 4. The rest were all Americans. But one evening during the Gora Arti, the evening Arti, this one Indian man, he was just by himself. In the middle of the kirtan, he just threw himself on the ground and started crying, like really. When a man cries, it's not very attractive. So, and I was bewildered. What is going on? What is he doing? But the president of the temple at that time was a devotee named Gopijana Ballabha. He was a very sincere devotee. He taught. No, he passed away already.
The translator, the Sanskrit translator?
No.
Not the same.
No, this is Gopi Jana Ballabha. The person who translated was Gopi Paranadana. He was around at the time. But the president, he told 2 brahmacharis, lift him up and take him outside and put him on the streets. And I was like, I didn't understand it at all. So afterwards I inquired, what was that all about? He said, he's a sahaja. He's an imitation. He thought he would impress the Westerners with his fake bhava. But it doesn't work. In fact, in Mayapur, 1977, it was my first visit to India, first visit to Mirepoix, and Prabhupada was there. And one of the leaders in Mayapur, the managers, organized a kirtan competition. You've never heard of a kirtan competition. And he sent out flyers to all the villages, inviting them to participate in the kirtan competition. So about 6 different groups from different villages, 6 groups came. Each group had about 10 people, 2 mridanga players, some kartal players, and 1 lead singer. And we all had to each group had to go on stage, standing up, for 1 hour, do a kirtan for 1 hour. And I was there watching, you know. I wasn't going to participate in the kirtan competition because I came from a small temple in Laguna Beach with 2 devotees. And they said each temple who wants to enter in the competition, they must have 10 devotees to go on stage. These were the rules. And there was a panel of judges sitting on the side of the stage. And they were all like dignitaries, the mayor of Navadvip, the so-and-so of Navadvip, you know, all these. And there was only one Westerner was a part of the panel of judges. And that was a Chutnanda Swami. So I thought, I cannot go on. People were asking me, Agni, why don't you enter the competition? And I said, no, I only came with 2 devotees. We cannot do everything. So then 2 other temples came and approached me and they said, Prabhu, we only brought 3 devotees. 2 different temples. These are small temples in America. Said we only brought 3 devotees. So why don't we all group together as one temple? You know? And he said, we'll have a group. We'll have 10 people to go on stage. And he said, and you will be the chanter. So I said, okay. So the way the competition went, they would play one Western group from one temple would go on stage, chant for an hour, you know, standing up, dancing, not sitting down. Then after that, a Bengali group, one of the village groups would come on. And then another Western group would take, and this would alternate. But when the first Bengali group came on stage, these guys could play the mridanga like nobody else. We had never heard such mridanga playing before coming to Mirepoix. They could get sounds out of the mridanga that I didn't think was possible. So they were real stylish. They had dances to accompany. It was like watching a real choreographed group. And then, not even 5 minutes into the kirtan, the lead singer threw himself on the ground. And he started rolling and crying. I said, oh no, this is crying loud, you know. And I got up and I walked out. I said, I don't want to hear this. Later in the day, I heard that Prabhupada was upstairs in his room on the 2nd floor, and he was getting a massage, in the afternoon. And the windows were open, so you can get a nice breeze coming through. And when he heard this guy crying, I was told so by one of his servants. Prabhupada asked, "What is that?" This man crying. And they said, "Oh, this is one of the Bengali kirtan groups. The person leading the kirtan." Prabhupada said, "Why is he here?" And I said, "Well, the leaders, the managers, they said they thought it would be a way to attract the villagers to come. So they had this competition." Prabhupada said, I mean, it's nice to invite the villagers to come, but they should not have put the word competition. So as soon as they put competition, kirtan competition, they said, only low-class people will come. So he said, that was the fault of it. Of course, we didn't know. Anyway, the competition went on. I think it took 2 days. because every group had an hour. And there were other programs scheduled to happen, you know. So we entered, you know, we went and did our hour. And after the 2 days, the judges announced who was the winning group. And at that time, they announced the group that I was in, we won the competition. Yeah. They gave me a trophy. You know, it was not anything that I expected to see happen. But we had heard from Prabhupada that there are such people, Sahajas. He writes about them in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. In fact, during the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, there was like 10 different Sahaja groups, all over, spread out all over Bengal, you know. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur had to preach to them and address these people, try to correct them. This is, you know, 500 years after Mahaprabhu had left, Vaishnavism had fallen into a state of, it was unrecognizable. It had become so degraded that pious Hindus, they had a bad opinion about Vaishnavas. If a Vaishnava, it said, if someone came to the door of a respectable Hindu gentleman, you know, knocking for alms, as the Vaishnavas would also do, go door to door doing, you know, Madhukari. The gentleman of the house would ask, who's there at the door? And they would tell him, oh, it's just a Vaishnava. And the fellow would say, give him a little something and chase him away. They had no interest in hearing from Vaishnavas because they had become so degraded. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur had the task of turning that around. So he began to write so scholarly, and preach. He was also given lectures, but writing specifically. He wrote so many wonderful books, trying to re-establish the superiority of Vaishnavism. But 500 years after Mahaprabhu, it had become so, no one took it seriously. Even Srila Maharaj said that. He said his family, I read yesterday, Srila Maharaj said his family, they're Shmata Brahmins, you know. And their opinion of the Vaishnavas was they're just losers. They're people who can't make it anywhere else. They suddenly join and all they become Paramahansa. So that's how they used to think. So Prabhupada was cautioning us, and in this song he gave a little purport and he said, this is not to be imitated. The fact is, bhava, that is a bona fide stage in the progress of Krishna consciousness. But when does that stage appear? That is the stage just before prema. So he said, you will not get bhava early in the stage, you know. You have to go through so many other things. Anartha, Nivritti, you know, Nishta, Bhajanapriya, all these things, before you get to bhava. And Bhaktisiddhanta once, a group of his senior men came to him saying, Guru Maharaj, can we put a question before you? And he said, sure. So they said, you write about these stages of ecstasy, bhava, so on and so on. This used to be a daily affair with Mahaprabhu, right? Every day Mahaprabhu was going to ecstasy. So they said, we've been chanting Hare Krishna now for so many years, but it's not happening to us. And Bhaktisiddhanta said, oh, I'm relieved. If you had told me you were already experiencing Bhava, I would be afraid. I would think that you ought to be becoming sahajas. So it's not to be imitated, but it will come. It is the Vaishnavas, they can inherit that, it's their right. But you have to go through the stages and become sufficiently advanced before these things happen. So, how these things will come about? Narottam Das Thakur says, Ar Kobinitai Chan Karuna Hoibe Sangsara Bhashana More Kobit Tucha Hobi. When you get the mercy, first get the mercy of Lord Nityananda. And you will know you are getting the mercy of Nityananda because when material pleasures and material aspirations become insignificant, you can give them up like that. Tucha. It is said about the 6 Goswamis, many of them came from aristocratic background. Rup Sanatan, they were ministers in the government. Not ordinary men, they were big men, like senators, big in the government. And they were making huge salaries, and they were able to, they walked away from that. Yeah, they walked away from that to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. So I said, how could they do that? Because they were made advancement, they were tasting, and therefore they could give it up easily as insignificant. Ordinarily, a person cannot walk away from a large sum of money, and if he has no higher taste, he cannot do that. It will be impossible. Prabhupada even said that during the time of the Gandhi, the period when Gandhi's movement was going, there was another fellow, Subhas Chandra Bose. He was more militant, He didn't believe in this non-violence thing. And Prabhupada said some people, especially in Bengal, they think it's because of him that the Britishers left India, not Gandhi. Because he was, like I said, he met with Gandhi, he respected him, and he said, this non-violence thing will not do. But these Britishers, they will not listen. That won't impress them. They're attached to owning and controlling and possessing India. They're not going to give it up so easily. So he formed an army, and he was very smart. At that time, the British were fighting against Japan and Germany. So there was 2 wars going on against the British. And during the war, they were the Germans and the Japanese, they kidnapped prisoners and put them in what you call concentration camps. So they were, and most of the army, the British army, were made up of Indians who they trained to fight for them, so they could wage war. They had a whole big country, India. So they were training soldiers, but Subhas had this idea, and he went and approached. He went to Hitler, and he went to the head of Japan, And he told them, he said, your enemy is my enemy. And they said, what do you mean? He said, the Britishers, he said, they are my enemy. They are inhabiting our country and rule it. So, and they're your enemy also, you're fighting against them. So they said, yes. He said, well, I know you have prisoners of war, and these soldiers are all Indians. Why don't you give them to me? Give me those prisoners, and I will put them in I'm creating an army to fight the Britishers. We will fight them in the back, from behind, while Japan and Germany are fighting them in front, we'll come from behind. And they liked the idea, so they gave him all these prisoners of war, who were trained soldiers. And he formed this Indian National Army, you know. And he's like a hero in Bengal, that he did this. And when the British realized that we're fighting the Japanese and we're fighting the German, and then behind us there's this other Indian guy, he's fighting us with men that we trained. And they realized we can't win this. And that's when they decide to move. So some people in India give more credit to Subhash than to Gandhi. Because he has the fame. Everyone thinks Gandhi drove the British out by non-violence. But Prabhupada didn't seem to think that was the case. He told us about Subhash. So, this to make advancement, this is what the song is about. Narottam Das Thakur was saying, we want to make spiritual advancement, first we have to get the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu gives us Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Uparagunatha Pade, Hoibe Akuti. He says, you have to study these books, and then you'll understand what is Vrindavan, what is really. So if you don't go through this, he said, then you're just sentimental, dreaming. But you have to study these books, and that the Gaudiya Vaishnava teachers, acharyas in the Gaudiya Vaishnava movement, they all offer respect and take lessons from the books of the Goswamis. They are what you call our Shastra Gurus. They present the Vedic Shastras, with the insights of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He ordered them to go and write this, what he had taught them. He himself didn't write. Mahaprabhu, he Shikshastakam, 8 verses. But it was understood that the first business of an acharya is to give a literary contribution. But Mahaprabhu didn't do that. But he taught those Goswamis, and then he told them, now go and live in Vrindavan and write about what I have taught you, and cite evidence from the Vedic body of literature to establish what we are saying. So they did so in such a wonderful way. And now, we have access to some of these books, Goswami's literature. We have, he said, by following them, Rupa Raghunatha Pode, Rahul Nora, then you will make advancement. So he's teaching us how we should aspire after making spiritual advancement in the right way, in the proper. There's a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. There's a right way to do something, or there's a wrong way, which will not bring about the desired results. That's why these songs of Narottam Das Thakur and other Thakur, they're important for us because we can get little insights, help, guidance from them, how to proceed step by step in our journey, spiritual journey. Okay? Did I go over time today? No?
Is it tomorrow Bhagavatam?
Oh yes.
About to it. Today.
So yeah, you're all invited to come. You know that already.
10:30.
10:30 is the...
The program, your program.
So, nice to see so many of you here tonight. Unfortunately, I'm nursing a cold, so my voice is a little nasal. But I'm fighting it. So now it's Arti. We have an Arti now? What? I can sing Arti if you want. Kiva Jayo Jayo Gora Chandil Arutiko Tura Jayo Jayo Gora Chandil Arutiko Tura Oh, koti sanjati His Divine Grace, Avoid Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki. Nityalila Pravishto Vishnupad Paramhamsa, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami, Prabhupada ki. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki. Namacharya Srila Thakur Haridas ki. Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya ki. Prem se Guru Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki. Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath, Shankar Radha Kund, Giri Govardhana ki. Sri Vrindavan Dham ki. Sri Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki. Ganga Devi Jamuna Mai ki. Bhakti Devi Tulasi Maharani ki. Naam Sankirtan ki. Harinam Mahamantra ki. Brihad Mridanga Seva ki. Parama Karuna Shri Gaur Nityananda ki. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki. Shri Sri Radha Govinda ki. Sam Lila Bhakta Vrinda ki. All glories to the assembly. All glories to the assembly. All glories to the assembly. Glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga.
Yes.
Oh, you do.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Radha Radha Daine.
Radha Radha Daine.
प्रहलाद महाराज की गो प्रेमानंद
So, that's it.
That's it.
So tomorrow, we'll look forward to seeing all of you.
You going? No, you
I'm
10:30. 10:30.
Yeah, I leave here on Monday morning. Monday morning at around 8 o'clock, I think I'm leaving. I take a train back to
Mirepoix. Châteauroux.
Châteauroux from Toulouse,
Châteauroux.
Châteauroux, and somebody at the road will pick me up there and bring me to
Mirepoix.
Mirepoix. It was a short visit, but sweet,
Yeah.
short and sweet.
Come back again next
Yes,
year.
of course. It's a nice growing community.
We are very happy to have you here.
Ah,
We are very happy to have you here.
oh, I'm happy to be here.
I think you'll come every year in France.
Yeah,
Ah, we will. Next time with Krishna Prasaya.
we have to see about that. It's not that she didn't want to come, but
Busy.
she gets herself entrenched in devotional service. She can't get away.
Oh.
You know, she takes on responsibilities. But I'm a little more free to get out. All right, well, thank you all very much. See you tomorrow. You have Tulsi Aarti now. Morning and evening.
Tiens, tu peux l'arrêter.
Yes, we don't
Oui, il
do
faut que j'aille, tu peux l'arrêter.
on the morning.
Yeah, it used to be, but they don't do it anymore.
Srigamat we do twice a day.
On fait comme ça. Attends, faut que je me dise.
Different song.
Tu vas
Yes,
arrêter.
different
Attends,
song.
tu fais
Not most of the
Et
same
après,
that we
attends,
sang this morning.
avec le cuir.
Yeah, well,